The afternoon sun felt warm against my back as I stood on the porch of my house, the house I had purchased with 35 years of back-breaking labor. My hand trembled slightly as I pushed the key into the lock, but something was wrong. The key refused to turn. I jiggled it, pulled it out, examined it to make sure I had grabbed the right one from my keychain. It was definitely the right key. The same key I had used for 12 years. But now it would not open my door. Before we proceed, we want to appreciate you for watching Granny's narrative. Please subscribe and tell us where you are watching from in the comment. My chest tightened as panic began to creep through my veins like ice water. Someone had changed my locks. Someone had changed the locks to my own house. Before I could process what was happening, I heard footsteps approaching from inside. Heavy, confident footsteps that knew they belonged there. The door swung open and there stood my daughter-in-law, Nicole, but she wore an expression I had never seen before. Gone was the sweet smile, the warm eyes, the gentle demeanor. In their place was something cold, something cruel, something that had been hiding beneath the surface for far too long. "Mother Gloria," she said, and her voice dripped with contempt. "The game is over. This house belongs to Marcus and me now. You need to leave." The words hit me like a physical blow. I staggered backward, gripping the porch railing to steady myself. This could not be happening. This was my house. I had saved every dollar, worked every overtime shift, sacrificed everything to buy this property. And now my own daughter-in-law was standing in my doorway telling me it belonged to her. "What are you talking about?" I managed to say through the shock. "Nicole, this is my house. My name is on the deed. I pay every bill, every tax, every insurance premium." "Not anymore," she replied with a smile that made my blood run cold. "Marcus and I have been planning this for over a year. We have all the paperwork we need. The house is being transferred to us as we speak. You should have thought about this before you got so old and useless." Old and useless. The words echoed in my mind as I stood there, a 65-year-old woman who had given everything to provide for her son, only to have him and his wife conspire to steal it all from me. But even as my heart shattered into a million pieces, something else began to awaken inside me. Something fierce and unbreakable. Something that had survived poverty, abandonment, and decades of struggle. I looked at Nicole with new eyes. Eyes that were no longer clouded by the desire to be a good mother-in-law, to keep the peace, to make everyone happy. And I smiled. It was a smile that came from deep within my soul, from the part of me that knew things they could never imagine. The part of me that had learned long ago that people who underestimate you based on your age make the biggest mistakes of their lives. "That is very interesting, Nicole," I said calmly, pulling out my phone. "Very interesting indeed. Because I think it is time you learned exactly who Gloria Anderson really is." Her confident expression flickered for just a moment. She did not understand why I was not crying, not begging, not collapsing in despair like they had clearly planned. But she would understand soon enough. They both would. My mind raced back to the beginning, to the day Marcus first brought Nicole home to meet me. It was a Sunday afternoon in April, and we had planned our usual mother-son lunch at the park. Marcus had been working at the insurance company for 2 years, finally stable after struggling through his 20s. He deserved happiness, and when I saw him walking toward me holding hands with this beautiful, elegant woman, my heart soared with joy. "Mom," he said with eyes that sparkled with love, "this is Nicole. She is the one I have been telling you about. She is incredible, Mom. She is everything I have ever wanted." Nicole approached me with open arms and a smile that could melt hearts. "Miss Gloria," she said warmly, "Marcus talks about you constantly. He says you are the strongest woman he has ever known. He says everything he is today is because of you. I hope we can be close. I have always wanted a mother-in-law who could be like a second mom to me." I was immediately charmed. What mother would not be? Here was a woman who loved my son, who respected the sacrifices I had made, who wanted to be part of our family. For the next 8 months of their courtship, Nicole was perfection itself. She visited me twice a week, helped me cook traditional family meals, asked for my recipes and my advice. She brought flowers and small gifts, remembered my favorite tea, and listened attentively to my stories about raising Marcus alone after his father abandoned us when he was just 3 years old. "Miss Gloria," she would say as we prepared food together in my kitchen, "I hope I can be half the mother you are when Marcus and I have children. You worked so hard to give him a good life. That is real love. That is the kind of love I want to build with him." When they got engaged, I could not have been happier. I spent $7,000 of my carefully saved retirement money to give them a beautiful wedding at the community hall. It was worth every penny to see my son so happy. Nicole cried when I gave her my wedding gift, a framed copy of the house deed with a note that said, "So you will always know you have a safe home with family who loves you." The first year of their marriage was wonderful. We cooked together, laughed together, and talked about their plans for the future. Nicole worked as a receptionist at a dental clinic and was taking online courses to become a dental hygienist. She spoke about wanting to give Marcus children, about building a life together, about how grateful she was that I let them live with me while they saved money for their own place. While they saved money. Those words should have been my first warning sign. But I was too blinded by my happiness at seeing my son settled with a good woman to notice the subtle changes that had already begun. The transformation started so gradually that I almost missed it. Small comments that seemed innocent at first. "Miss Gloria, do you think we could update the living room? This furniture is so outdated." Or when her friends visited, she would say, "Yes, we live with Marcus's mother temporarily until we can afford our own place." Nothing personal against her, of course. Temporarily. That word began appearing more and more frequently in her vocabulary. "It is just temporary," she would tell her mother on the phone. "We will not have to deal with her old-fashioned ways forever. It is just temporary," she would explain to Marcus when he suggested they help me with repairs around the house. Why invest in a place that is not really ours? Then came the accidents. My grandmother's china teapot, the one that had been passed down through 3 generations, mysteriously fell and shattered. "Oh, Miss Gloria, I am so sorry," Nicole said without a trace of genuine remorse in her eyes. "Just slipped right out of my hands." My favorite armchair, the one I had sat in every evening for 20 years to read and relax, suddenly had a large stain that could not be removed. "I have no idea how that happened, Miss Gloria. I woke up this morning and it was just there." The photographs began disappearing from the walls. Family pictures of Marcus as a child, photos of my parents and grandparents, images that chronicled our family history. In their place appeared modern art prints that Nicole had chosen. When I asked about my photos, she said she had packed them away safely because they were getting damaged by sunlight. But I never saw them again in their frames. My plants, which I had nurtured for years, began dying one by one. "Oh, I keep forgetting to water them, Miss Gloria," Nicole would say with a shrug. "I am just so busy with work and keeping the house clean. Maybe we should just throw them out and get some nice artificial ones instead." "Marcus," I said to my son one evening when Nicole was working late, "I feel like Nicole is not comfortable living here. Maybe it would be better if you two found your own apartment. I do not want to be a burden on your marriage." "Mom, do not say that," he replied, but his eyes would not meet mine. "Nicole loves you. She is just adjusting to married life. Give her more time. She will settle in." More time. I gave her 3 years of time. 3 years of watching the sweet woman I had welcomed into my home transform into someone who looked at me like I was an obstacle standing between her and the life she wanted. 3 years of slowly being erased from my own house, my own life, my own family. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in June. I woke up to find my entire living room rearranged. My furniture, the furniture I had saved for months to buy, was piled in the garage like trash. In its place was expensive modern furniture I had never seen before. Nicole was sitting on the new sofa drinking coffee as if nothing unusual had happened. "Good morning, Mother Gloria," she said with cold politeness. "Do you like the changes?" Marcus and I decided it was time to modernize the space. "Your old furniture was falling apart anyway." My old furniture was not falling apart. It was well maintained and comfortable. But more importantly, this was my house. Nobody had asked my permission. Nobody had consulted me. They had simply decided to erase another piece of me from my own home. "Nicole," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady, This is my furniture in my house. You cannot just throw it away and replace it without asking me." She looked at me with barely concealed annoyance. "Miss Gloria, you need to understand something. Marcus and I are building a life here. We cannot keep living surrounded by outdated things that remind us we are stuck in someone else's space. This is our home now too. You need to accept that things are changing. Home now too." The word struck me like a slap. When did my generosity in letting them live here temporarily become their right to take over my entire house? When Marcus came home that evening, I expected him to see what had happened and set things right. But instead, he walked to the new sofa, sat down with a sigh of relief, and smiled at Nicole. "This is amazing, honey. So much more comfortable than that old stuff. Great job." "Marcus," I said, pointing to my furniture stacked in the garage, "what about my things? Those pieces have been with us for years. They mean something to me." He barely glanced my way. "Mom, that furniture was ancient. We can donate it to charity. Someone probably needs it more than we do. Besides, you should be happy we are taking care of the house and making improvements. Taking care of my house by throwing away my belongings without permission. Making improvements that I never asked for and did not want. And I was supposed to be grateful." That night, I lay in bed listening to them laugh and celebrate their successful renovation in the living room that no longer felt like mine. I should have been angry. I should have been hurt. But instead, a strange clarity settled over me. This was not just about furniture or decorating preferences. This was about control. This was about slowly pushing me out of my own home, making me feel unwelcome and uncomfortable until I left on my own. But they had made one critical mistake. They assumed that because I was older, because I was kind, because I had been generous, I was also weak. They assumed that a 65-year-old woman who had worked her fingers to the bone for 35 years would simply give up her home without a fight. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Over the next few weeks, Nicole stopped even pretending to respect me. She invited her friends over without telling me, and they took over my kitchen, used my dishes, and talked about me as if I were not there. "This is Marcus's mother," Nicole would say with a dismissive wave. "She is set in her old-fashioned ways, but we are working on getting her to understand that times have changed." Her friends would nod sympathetically, sharing their own stories about difficult older relatives who refused to accept that they needed to step aside and let the younger generation take control. They discussed me in third person while I stood in my own kitchen, invisible and dismissed. One afternoon, I came home from grocery shopping to find Nicole had rearranged my bedroom. My personal space, the one room I thought was still mine, had been invaded. She had moved my dresser, thrown out several of my decorative items she deemed old and ugly, and replaced my bedspread with one she liked better. "Miss Gloria," she said when she saw my shocked expression, "I was just trying to help. Your room was so cluttered and depressing. Now it looks much fresher and cleaner." "This is my bedroom, Nicole," I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. "You have no right to touch my personal belongings." She rolled her eyes. "Miss Gloria, you need to stop being so possessive about everything. This is a family home. We all live here together. You cannot expect to control every single detail." But I was not trying to control every detail. I was simply trying to maintain some small piece of dignity and autonomy in my own house. The house I had purchased. The house that bore my name on the deed. The house that these two people were systematically stealing from me piece by piece, day by day. The final insult came when Nicole's parents visited from Ohio. She had completely reorganized my house to impress them, moving my remaining personal items into my bedroom and the garage to make the house look like it belonged to her and Marcus alone. When her parents walked through the door, her mother looked around approvingly. "What a beautiful home you have, Nicole," her mother said with pride. "You have such wonderful taste in decorating." "Thank you, Mom," Nicole replied with a bright smile. "Marcus and I have worked really hard to make this place our own. We wanted to create a space that reflects who we are as a couple. Not a single mention that this was my house. Not a single acknowledgement that I existed. I had been completely erased." That evening, I overheard Nicole talking to her mother in the kitchen. They thought I was asleep, but I had come downstairs for a glass of water. Mom, I am so close, Nicole whispered with excitement. I have been making her more and more uncomfortable. She hardly feels at home anymore. I give it another 6 months, maybe less, before she decides to move out on her own. And once she does, the house will be completely ours. Her mother's voice was equally cold. That is smart, Nicole. Much better than trying to force her out directly. This way, she leaves voluntarily and you two get everything without any legal complications. Legal complications. They had actually discussed the legal aspects of stealing my home. This was not just casual cruelty or thoughtlessness. This was a calculated plan to drive me out of my own house. Something inside me shifted that night. The sadness and hurt transformed into something sharper, something stronger. I was not going to let this happen. I was not going to be another elderly person pushed aside and forgotten by family members who saw them as nothing more than an inconvenient obstacle to wealth and comfort. 2 weeks later, everything changed in a way none of us expected. On a Monday morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m. It was a lawyer named Thomas Chen calling from Sacramento. He informed me that my older brother Daniel, with whom I had lost contact over the past 7 years due to a silly family disagreement, had passed away from a sudden stroke. But that was not all. Daniel had named me as the sole beneficiary of his entire estate. Mr. Chen, how much are we discussing? I asked, my voice still thick with sleep and shock. Approximately $420,000, Miss Anderson. Your brother was quite successful with his import-export business. The estate includes 3 rental properties, investment accounts, and liquid assets. We need you to come to Sacramento to finalize the paperwork and transfer everything into your name. I sat in my kitchen for nearly an hour after that phone call, processing the news. Daniel was gone. My big brother who had taught me how to ride a bike, who had protected me from bullies in school, who had helped me move into my first apartment when I was 18 years old. We had let a stupid argument about money and family obligations 7 years ago destroy our relationship. And now he was gone, but he had left me everything he had built. I should have felt joy at this financial windfall. $420,000 would secure my retirement, let me travel, let me live comfortably for the rest of my life. But all I felt was grief and regret. Grief for my brother. Regret that I had let pride keep us apart for so long. What I did not know was that Nicole had been awake and listening to the entire phone conversation from the hallway. She had heard every word about the inheritance. And in her twisted mind, she had already started calculating how she could get her hands on that money too. For the next 3 days, Nicole underwent the most dramatic transformation I had witnessed yet. Suddenly, she was sweet again, attentive, caring, just like she had been when Marcus first brought her home. She made my favorite breakfast, asked about my day, offered to help with chores. Miss Gloria, she said on the 3rd day as we folded laundry together, I have been thinking about how I have been acting lately. The stress of work and trying to adjust to marriage made me inconsiderate of your feelings. I am truly sorry. You have been so generous letting us live here, and I have not shown you the gratitude and respect you deserve. I looked at her carefully, noting the calculated warmth in her eyes. She was good, I had to give her that. If I had not overheard her conversation with her mother, if I had not spent the last few months watching her systematically try to drive me from my own home, I might have believed this sudden change of heart was genuine. Thank you, Nicole, I said carefully. That means a lot to me. She smiled and took my hand. Miss Gloria, I also wanted to talk to you about your brother's inheritance. That must be such a relief to know you have that financial security. You have worked so hard your whole life. You deserve to enjoy your retirement without worries. Yes, I replied, watching her closely. It was unexpected but certainly a blessing. Her eyes lit up with barely concealed excitement. Marcus and I were discussing it, and we had some ideas about how you could invest that money to get the best returns. Marcus works in finance after all. He really knows the market. We could help you make smart decisions so your money works for you. There it was. The real reason for her sudden kindness. She wanted to get her hands on my inheritance. Not just my house, but every penny my brother had left me. That is very thoughtful, Nicole, I said with a smile. Let me think about it and get back to you. Over the next week, Nicole worked overtime to convince me to put my financial affairs in her and Marcus's hands. She brought home investment brochures, talked about creating a joint family account for easier management, and even suggested that I give Marcus power of attorney so he could handle all my financial matters and save me the stress. Miss Gloria, at your age, you should not have to worry about managing all this money and property, she said one evening over dinner. That is what family is for. Let Marcus and me take care of the complicated stuff. You just relax and enjoy your life. My age. As if being 65 meant I was too feeble-minded to manage my own affairs. I had managed to buy a house, raise a son alone, and build a modest but secure life through careful planning and hard work. But now, suddenly, I was too old to handle my own money. What I did not tell Nicole was that I had already spoken to 3 different attorneys about protecting my assets. I had learned about family fraud, about how adult children and their spouses sometimes manipulated elderly parents into signing over property and money. I had learned about powers of attorney and how they could be abused. I had learned exactly what my legal rights were and how to protect myself. But I let Nicole believe I was considering her suggestions. I let her think her plan was working, because I was formulating a plan of my own. 3 weeks after learning about my inheritance, I made an announcement over breakfast. I told Marcus and Nicole that I had decided to visit my cousin Helena in Arizona for a few weeks to clear my head and think about my future. I said I was overwhelmed by Daniel's death and the sudden inheritance, and I needed time away to process everything. When I come back, I told them we will sit down together and discuss everything. The inheritance, the investments, the house, all of it. I want to make sure we are all on the same page about the future. Nicole's face practically glowed with triumph. Of course, Miss Gloria. Take all the time you need. Marcus and I will take care of everything here. You just focus on yourself and healing from your grief. I left 2 days later, hugging them both goodbye and watching them wave from the porch as my taxi pulled away. But I did not go to Arizona. Instead, I checked into a small extended-stay hotel 15 minutes from my house under my maiden name. And I hired a private investigator named Raymond Cole. Mr. Cole was a former police detective who specialized in family fraud and elder abuse cases. He was expensive, $600 per day, but he was worth every penny. I gave him written authorization to install security cameras in my house, cameras that Nicole and Marcus would never notice. Tiny devices hidden in smoke detectors, wall outlets, picture frames. They would document everything that happened in my home while I was supposedly away in Arizona. For the first 4 days, the cameras captured exactly what I expected. Marcus and Nicole wasted no time. They began packing up my remaining personal belongings and moving them to the garage. They threw away items they considered worthless, including more family photographs and heirlooms. They acted as if the house was already theirs in every way that mattered. But on the 5th day, the cameras captured something that made my blood run cold. Nicole was on the phone with someone, pacing back and forth in my kitchen. The hidden camera picked up every word. David, she said, and I later learned this was her cousin who worked as a paralegal at a law firm. I need you to come over this weekend with the documents we discussed. Yes, all of them. The property transfer, the power of attorney papers, everything. A male voice on the phone asked a question I could not hear, but Nicole's response was crystal clear. No, I do not have her signature yet, but I do not need it. I have been collecting samples of her handwriting for the past year. Letters she has written, shopping lists, birthday cards. Your firm can forge her signature perfectly, just like you did for that other client last year. She will never know the difference until it is too late. Forge my signature. They were planning to forge legal documents with my name. This was not just unethical anymore. This was criminal fraud. But Nicole was not finished. The cameras captured her making another call, this time to a real estate agent. Hi, yes, I'm calling about listing a property for sale. It is a 3-bedroom house in excellent condition in a desirable neighborhood. We are looking to sell quickly, within the next 2 months if possible. Price range. We are thinking around $530,000. $530,000. They were planning to sell my house, the house they did not own, the house they had no legal right to sell. The agent apparently asked about ownership and paperwork, because Nicole responded smoothly. "Oh yes, we have all the necessary documentation. My husband is the sole heir of his mother's estate. She is developing dementia and we have power of attorney to manage all her affairs. It is a sad situation, but we need to liquidate her assets to pay for her care facility." Developing dementia. Care facility. They were going to use fabricated medical evidence of mental incompetence to justify stealing everything I owned. Over the next 10 days, the cameras documented everything. Nicole and Marcus meeting with her cousin David to review forged documents. Nicole calling multiple real estate agents to get the best price for my house. Marcus going through my financial papers to figure out how much I had in my bank accounts. And worst of all, Nicole on the phone with her mother, laying out the entire plan. "Mom, we are so close now," Nicole said with barely contained excitement. "In another month we will have everything. The house will be in our name, we will have control of all her bank accounts through the power of attorney, and we will have enough evidence of her mental decline to have her committed if she tries to fight back." Her mother asked something and Nicole laughed. A cold, cruel laugh that sounded nothing like the sweet woman who had won my heart 3 years ago. "Oh, we have been documenting her confusion for months now," Nicole said. "I tell Marcus she is forgetting things, repeating questions, getting confused about dates and times. He believes all of it because he trusts me more than her. When the time comes to commit her, he will sign the papers without hesitation. Commit me." They were planning to have me involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility or nursing home based on manufactured evidence that I was mentally incompetent. The cameras captured Nicole and Marcus discussing what they would do with their newfound wealth once they had stolen everything from me. A new house in the suburbs with a pool. A luxury vacation to Europe. A new car for Nicole. They spent my money in their imaginations, dividing up assets I had spent decades earning, celebrating a victory they had not yet achieved. But the most painful moment came when the cameras showed Marcus packing up photographs of himself as a child. Pictures of his birthdays, his school graduations, his achievements. Our memories together. He held up a photo of the two of us at his high school graduation. Him in his cap and gown, me standing beside him with tears of pride in my eyes. "What should I do with all these old photos?" he asked Nicole. She barely glanced at them before waving her hand dismissively. "Throw them all away. We do not need her sentimental garbage cluttering up our house. We will make our own memories and take our own photos. The past does not matter anymore." Marcus hesitated for just a moment, looking at that graduation photo. I wondered if he remembered that day. If he remembered how I had worked a double shift the night before so I could take the day off to attend his graduation. If he remembered how I had saved for 6 months to buy him that class ring he had wanted so badly. If he remembered anything about the woman who had sacrificed everything to give him a good life. Then he tossed the photo into a garbage bag with all the others and walked away without a second thought. That was when I knew there was no going back. My son was not an innocent victim being manipulated by his wife. He was a willing participant in this betrayal. He knew exactly what they were doing, and he had chosen money over his mother. He had chosen greed over love. He had chosen to throw away everything I was and everything I had done for him like it was worthless trash. For 2 days after watching that footage, I cried in my hotel room. I cried for the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. I cried for the teenager who used to tell me I was the best mom in the world. I cried for the young man who had once promised he would always take care of me when I got older. And I cried for myself, for the naive mother who had believed that unconditional love was enough to protect you from being betrayed by your own child. But on the 3rd day I stopped crying. I dried my tears, looked at myself in the mirror, and made a decision. I was not going to be a victim. I was not going to let them destroy me. I was going to fight back with everything I had, and I was going to make sure they paid for every moment of pain they had caused me. I called Mr. Cole and told him I had seen enough. He delivered 2 USB drives containing over 150 hours of footage documenting every aspect of Nicole and Marcus's fraud. I also called the 3 attorneys I had consulted with and scheduled meetings with all of them. By the time I returned home, I would have a legal team ready to destroy Nicole and Marcus's lives as thoroughly as they had tried to destroy mine. The day I returned home was October 27th. I had been gone for exactly 3 weeks. As my taxi pulled up to the house, I felt a strange calm settle over me. This was it. The moment of truth. The moment when Nicole and Marcus would discover that they had made the biggest mistake of their lives. I walked up to the porch and inserted my key into the lock, already knowing it would not work. They had changed the locks, just as I had predicted they would. I jiggled the key, made a show of confusion, and waited for them to open the door. Nicole appeared, and the look on her face was everything I had imagined. Cold, triumphant, cruel. She truly believed she had won. She believed I was just a confused old woman who could be easily discarded. Mother Gloria, she said with that venomous smile, the game is over. This house belongs to Marcus and me now. You need to leave. I let her have her moment. I let her say all the horrible things she had been storing up to say. I let her feel powerful and in control. And then I pulled out my phone. That is very interesting, Nicole, I said calmly. I think it is time you learned exactly who Gloria Anderson really is. Call Marcus and tell him to come out here. We need to have a family discussion. She looked confused, uncertain for the first time. But she called Marcus, and when he appeared looking guilty and unable to meet my eyes, I knew it was time to end this nightmare. I pulled out my phone and played the first recording. Nicole's voice filled the air with crystal clarity, describing how she had been manipulating Marcus, planning to forge my signature, documenting fake evidence of my mental decline. Marcus's face turned white as he listened to his wife describe him as naive and easy to manipulate. Then I played the second recording. Nicole discussing with her cousin how they would forge legal documents, how they would sell my house, how they would have me committed to a facility against my will. Marcus staggered backward as if he had been struck. How do you have these recordings? Nicole whispered, her face drained of all color. Because I never went to Arizona, I replied calmly. I stayed in a hotel a few miles from here and hired the best private investigator in the city. I have over 150 hours of video footage documenting every single thing you have done over the past 3 weeks. Every forged document. Every conversation with real estate agents. Every plan to steal my property and my inheritance. Every word about having me declared incompetent and committed against my will. I pulled out the USB drives and held them up. All of it is documented and saved in multiple locations. And all of it is about to be handed over to the police and the district attorney. Marcus tried to speak, but I held up my hand to silence him. Do not say a word, Marcus. You threw away photos of us together like they were garbage. You sat in this house and planned how to spend my money before you had even stolen it. You discussed having your own mother committed to a psychiatric facility based on lies. You do not get to speak to me anymore. That was when Nicole finally seemed to understand the gravity of what was happening. Her face went from white to gray. She started to say something to make excuses, but I was not interested in hearing anything she had to say. I called my attorney, David Martinez, who had been waiting for my signal. Mr. Martinez, I said clearly so Nicole and Marcus could hear. I am at the property now with the individuals we discussed. I have confronted them with the evidence. It is time to proceed with filing criminal charges. Nicole's knees buckled and she had to grab the doorframe to stay upright. Criminal charges, she said. Cannot. We never actually went through with anything. We were just planning. Conspiracy to commit fraud is a crime, Nicole, I said coldly. Forgery is a crime. Attempted theft is a crime. Elder abuse is a crime. And manufacturing false medical evidence to have someone committed against their will is a crime. You have committed all of those crimes, and they are all documented on video with your own voice confessing to every detail. My friend Helena arrived then, along with Mr. Martinez and 2 police officers. Everything had been coordinated perfectly. The moment of confrontation, the presentation of evidence, the filing of formal charges. Nicole and Marcus, the female officer said, "You are being arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted forgery, conspiracy to commit theft, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit unlawful imprisonment." You have the right to remain silent. Nicole started screaming then, a high-pitched wail of fury and panic. This is not fair, she shrieked. The old woman has money she does not even need. She's going to die soon anyway. We deserve that money more than she does. Even in her arrest, even as her entire scheme collapsed around her, she still believed she was entitled to my property, my inheritance, my life savings simply because I was older and she wanted it. Marcus said nothing. He just stared at me with tears rolling down his face as the officer put handcuffs on his wrists. Mom, he finally whispered, I am sorry. I do not know what happened to me. Love you. No, Marcus, I said, and my voice was hard as stone. You do not love me. You love money. You love comfort. You love the idea of getting something for nothing. But you do not love me. If you loved me, you would not have thrown away our family photos like trash. You would not have plotted to have me committed to a psychiatric facility. You would not have stood by and let your wife plan to steal everything I worked 35 years to build. He opened his mouth to speak, but the officer guided him toward the police car. I watched them both being put into separate patrol cars, still unable to fully process what had happened to them. They had been so certain of their victory, so confident that they were smarter than the old woman who had raised Marcus from a baby. After the police cars drove away, I stood in front of my house with Helena and Mr. Martinez. The attorney explained what would happen next. The evidence was overwhelming. The district attorney would almost certainly pursue maximum charges. Given the premeditation, the attempted forgery, the conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and the attempted unlawful confinement, Nicole was looking at 15 to 25 years in prison. Marcus would likely face 10 to 18 years. Are you comfortable with this outcome, Miss Anderson? Mr. Martinez asked me gently. These are very serious charges that will result in very serious consequences. I thought about that question for a long moment. Was I comfortable sending my only son to prison for a decade or more? Was I comfortable destroying his life and his future? Then I remembered his face as he threw away our family photos. I remembered him discussing how much money they would make selling my house. I remembered him agreeing that I should be committed to a facility. And I knew my answer. Mr. Martinez, I said firmly, for 3 years they made me feel unwelcome in my own home. They systematically worked to drive me out, to steal everything I own, to have me locked away in a facility where I would be helpless and forgotten. They did all of this with full knowledge of what they were doing. They showed me no mercy, no compassion, no respect. I will show them exactly the same consideration they showed me. He nodded understanding. Then we will proceed with full prosecution. The trial took 9 months. During that time I learned things about Nicole I had never known. She had done this before. In her first marriage, she had systematically isolated her elderly first husband's mother and convinced him to cut off all contact with her. That marriage had ended in divorce when the husband finally realized what Nicole was doing. But by then his mother had passed away, heartbroken and alone. This was Nicole's pattern. She targeted men with mothers who owned property. She isolated them, manipulated them, and worked to steal their family assets. Marcus had simply been her most successful target until I fought back. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury took less than 4 hours to reach a verdict. Nicole was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. Marcus, who had been slightly less involved in the planning stages, received 16 years. I sat in the courtroom as the judge read the sentences, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no joy. Just emptiness where my son used to be in my heart. After the trial, I used part of my inheritance to purchase a smaller but beautiful 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood 40 minutes away from my old property. I sold my original house for $540,000 and invested the money wisely. Helena moved into a condo 3 blocks away from my new place, and we became each other's family. I also did something else. I established a foundation to help elderly people who were being financially abused by family members. I donated $100,000 to get it started, and I volunteered my time to counsel other seniors who were going through what I had experienced. I wanted to make sure that my pain could help prevent others from suffering the same betrayal. Every night before I go to sleep in my new home, I look at the one photograph of Marcus I kept. It is from his 8th birthday party. His face covered in chocolate cake. His eyes bright with innocent joy. I speak to that little boy, not to the man he became. Marcus, I whisper to the photograph, your mother did what she had to do. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I deserved dignity. Not because I stopped loving you, but because loving someone does not mean letting them destroy you. Maybe one day, 16 years from now, when you walk out of that prison, you will understand that the greatest lesson a parent can teach is that actions have consequences. I am 74 years old now, 9 years after the trial that changed everything. Helena and I take trips together, visit museums, attend concerts, and enjoy the life I work so hard to build. I have friends, hobbies, and peace. I have dignity and autonomy. I have a life that belongs to me and only me. Sometimes I wonder what Marcus is doing in prison. If he thinks about me. If he regrets his choices. If he has finally grown into the man I tried to raise him to be. But those thoughts come less frequently now. I have learned that you cannot save people who do not want to be saved. You cannot love people into being good. You can only protect yourself and move forward. Nicole will be 70 years old when she is released. Marcus will be 59. They will have lost the best years of their lives, their youth, their opportunities, their freedom. All because they believed that an elderly woman with money was an easy target. All because they underestimated the strength it takes to survive 35 years of hard labor and single parenthood. All because they forgot that the generation that built everything they took for granted is not weak. We are warriors who learn to fight in ways they could never imagine. The foundation I started has now helped over 300 families. We provide legal assistance, counseling, and support groups for elderly people dealing with financial abuse from family members. We have prevented countless thefts, stopped numerous frauds, and helped seniors maintain their independence and dignity. Every person we help is a small victory against the Nicoles of the world. Every family we save is proof that age does not equal weakness. Every senior who stands up for themselves with our help is another reminder that respect is not negotiable, no matter how old you are. Helena often asks me if I have any regrets. If I wish I had handled things differently. If I ever think about forgiving Marcus. I always give her the same answer. I do not regret protecting myself. I do not regret demanding the respect I deserved. I do not regret refusing to be a victim. And as for forgiveness, that is a complicated word. I have forgiven the little boy who did not know better. But the grown man who made those choices, who threw away our memories like garbage, who plotted to have his own mother institutionalized for money, that man will have to live with his own conscience. My forgiveness or lack of it does not change what he did or the consequences he faces. I have learned that there is strength in boundaries. There is power in saying no. There is dignity in refusing to accept mistreatment, even from people you love. Especially from people you love. My story is not about revenge, though many people see it that way. It is about justice. It is about refusing to disappear quietly into the margins of your own life. It is about standing up and saying, I matter. My life matters. My work matters. My dignity matters. And nobody, not even my own child, has the right to take that away from me. I am Gloria Anderson. I worked cleaning offices for 35 years. I raised a son alone. I bought a house with my own money. I survived betrayal by the people I loved most. And I am still here, still strong, still fighting for others who need someone in their corner. That is who I am. And that is who I will always be. Not a victim. Not an easy target. Not a confused old woman who can be pushed aside and forgotten. I am a survivor. I am a warrior. And I am proof that it is never ever too late to stand up for yourself and demand the life you deserve. Every morning when I wake up in my beautiful home that nobody can take from me, I remind myself of one simple truth. I won. Not because I sent them to prison. Not because I kept my money and property. I won because I refused to let them break me. I won because I chose dignity over peace. I won because I proved that love should never require you to sacrifice your self-respect. And that is the most important victory of all. The end of my story is not bitter. It is bittersweet, yes, but also filled with hard-earned peace. I have built a life that honors the sacrifices I made, the work I put in, and the strength I discovered within myself when I needed it most. To anyone out there facing similar betrayal, similar abuse, similar manipulation from family members who believe you are too old or too weak to fight back, I want you to know this. You are stronger than you think. You deserve better than you are getting. And it is never too late to stand up for yourself. Age is not weakness. Kindness is not stupidity. Generosity is not an invitation to be exploited. And family is not an excuse for abuse. Remember that. Fight for it. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you do not matter. 'Cause you do matter. Your life matters. Your dignity matters. And you have every right to protect what is yours. That is my story. That is my truth. And that is my gift to anyone who needs to hear it. Stand strong. Stand proud. And never apologize for demanding the respect you deserve. You are worth it. Always.